So I made a short the other day talking about how Digimon Up, the new mobile game, has removed the Sistermon censorship which has plagued us since Cyber Sleuth in North America, with basically all versions of Cyber Sleuth and Hacker's Memory now only including CL in English media, and obviously Noir in Japan, and this even affected the card game, which technically could have repercussions in future, but it looks like now, thanks to Digimon Up and some minor alt arts in the card game, we're leaving the CL and Noir separation in the past, and they're now both getting to be in all games and media across all languages going forward. And in that short that, like I say, blew up, thank you, I had a lot of comments saying, oh, now finally they can add both to Time Stranger, and yeah, this got me thinking about that leaked list of data-mined moves for Digimon that came out in the run-up to Time Stranger releasing. So I want to take a look back at this and consider which of these Digimon are now in the game, and now with much more context going forward, which other Digimon from this list and beyond are most likely to be in the DLC. What is up, digital companions? My name is Karn EX and welcome back to another video, and yes, it is Digimon Story Time Stranger on Switch in Switch 2 release month, Digimon Up release month. I've actually been diving back into Time Stranger on Switch and Switch 2, rediscovering all my joy with it. Ugh, what a game. And playing it has been made so much easier thanks to 8BitDo's Ultimate 2 Bluetooth controller, today's sponsor. I was absolutely overjoyed to be reached out to by 8BitDo for this video because I already own 8BitDo products such as the 8BitDo Switch and PC arcade stick, which I use legitimately all the time. When they sent me the Ultimate 2 Bluetooth controller, I didn't know what to expect, but I was really happy with what I received. Whether it's the TMR joysticks with enhanced precision and durability and improved resistance to stick drift, very key, especially for the Switch and Switch 2, or the Hall effect triggers, smooth and responsive for greater accuracy and performance, and that trigger mode switch, which lets you switch between the linear Hall effect triggers and non-linear tactile triggers for optimal control across different gaming scenarios. Plus the RGB firing. I love a little bit of flair in my controllers and things like that, so having customizable lighting effects that add personality to my gaming setup, I really like. And with that Switch optimized layout, while it's great for use on my PC, it means that I'm not trying to constantly double check which one is A and B when I play Switch games, because I know that the Ultimate 2 Bluetooth controller is designed specifically for that Switch and Switch 2 layout. I love the integrated charging dock, a convenient charging and storage solution that keeps the controller ready to play, and also a great way to connect to the PC. Plus, and this is really key, especially when I'm playing further away from the TV on the couch, the 8BitDo Ultimate 2 Bluetooth controller supports Switch 2 Wake Up. All you have to do is shake the controller to wake the Switch from sleep mode. It's a fantastic controller, and I have been loving using it while I play Digimon Story Time Stranger. For me, the Ultimate 2 Bluetooth delivers a flagship level gaming experience at an exceptional value, and I would love it if you checked out my link in the description down below and in the pinned comment down below to go check out and pick up the 8BitDo Ultimate 2 Bluetooth controller yourself. And thank you to 8BitDo and their new Ultimate 2 Bluetooth controllers for PC and Switch 2 for sponsoring this video. Alright, so let's dive back into this DLC leak, thanks to AnyPermission958 on Reddit. From everything I've seen, this does seem to be a legitimate list of attacks in the game. Now on the second page we can see a list of X antibodies which are in the game. Jessmon X antibody, Magnamon X antibody, Ulforce Vidramon X antibody, Jukemon or Gallantmon X antibody, and Omegamon or Omnimon X antibody. These were all added in the final Anti-Paradox DLC for Time Stranger. Examon is in the base game. I'm not sure whether this list is saying Examon or Examon X antibody, but of course that didn't show up. And of course we also saw the Bancho Digimon, Stingmon, Lilymon, Golemon, and Mamimon added to the game through the Gakuran DLC, and of course that DLC also featured Omnimon Merciful Mode, which was also in this leak, and Blitzgreymon, Crescarumon, Omnimon Alter S, and Omnimon Alter B in the first DLC. However, this list still includes Digimon that weren't in the game, and talking about my little intro there, it looks like in the game there is attack data for Sistermon Blanc Awakened, and Sistermon Noir, and Sistermon Noir Awakened. Now you gotta bear in mind, this list of cut Digimon doesn't necessarily mean they were removed from the game. They may not even have been planned for the game. However, However, considering how many of these ended up being DLC Digimon, obviously 15 to 16 of them, you have to wonder if a lot of this actually isn't carry-through data from Cyber Sleuth or Digimon Eirias or something like that. Of note is that the NX Edge style Digimon are nowhere to be seen in this data as far as I'm aware, which would then make Sistermon and Hoodymon being in it slightly more interesting. Gotta bear in mind that we don't even have Sistermon CL here, just Sistermon Noir, though of course this is a Japanese developed game, so they might make Noir first and then skin over with CL. It's also possible they were just gonna add Noir to Time Stranger. But the fact that the NX Edge style Digimon are not here kind of indicates to me this might not just be as simple as, oh well, let's just cut Digimon from Hacker's memory. Hopping back to the start of the list, we have some Digimon that seem very obvious as cut Digimon to me. Chikomon and Chibimon. These are Vmon pre-evolutions. I don't know why they'd specifically choose Vmon here, however, Vmon seems pretty popular. Besides Agumon, if we look at Digimon Up, the next leaked banner apparently is going to feature Vmon and Davis. I can definitely feel that perhaps Hara or even Habu have some 0-2 bias as well, based on a lot of the armors being in the game. We then have the Miko modes for Sequoiamon and Kuzuhamon. Again, very notable omissions from the game. First of all, Sequoiamon Miko mode was in Digimon Survive, and as I've discussed a lot, Habu liked to tease things in previous projects that linked to the next. So obviously Time Stranger focuses on the Olympos 12, and Survive had evolutions like Ceresmon and Ceresmon Medium, Plutomon, etc. And of course, prominently, the partner Renamon that becomes Sequoiamon. It just seemed very random in a game full of mode change that they wouldn't have these two easy to do Miko modes that a lot of fans want. Feels like something that was cut for time. Kakatrimon and Akatorimon. These again felt very obvious to me. I was surprised not to see them in the pre-evolutions for Parrotmon, given that Parrotmon was one of the first bosses of the game and very prominently advertised in the marketing. Plus, and yes, a probably much more recent piece of media than Time Stranger was considering, Muchomon, Delumon, and Medieval Gallantmon are all in the base game of Time Stranger, but Kakatrimon and Akatorimon aren't. And in Liberator, that line, Muchomon, Kakatrimon, Delumon, and Medieval Gallantmon, is the other partner for Shoto Kazuma, but we can't do it in the game. Dominimon, less surprised not to see here, though, again, in hindsight, having now played the game, there is a lot of love for V-Tamer. We have Callismon added to the base game, the first appearance of Callismon in a 3D game, if not any game, and we have Parallelmon, also a V-Tamer exclusive Digimon finally added to a video game. So Dominimon, which was the mega version of the Holy Angemon, Magna Angemon for you dub enjoyers, and its Priest mode, which was also V-Tamer exclusive, until a brief cameo in Digimon Adventure 2020, I could absolutely see showing up in this game. Hookmon and Mermaimon. Yeah, Hookmon less so. I mean, it would make sense, I think, especially in the Abyss area, and I think would have connected some evolutions nicely in the game, but Mermaimon, again, was the branching gap between Shellmon and Marine Angemon in Digimon Survive. I could very easily have seen, in fact, Mermaimon being the bridging gap between Shellmon and Venusmon in Time Stranger. Then there's Evilmon. We have a lot of evil Digimon in the game. It could have been added. Then we run through 5 of the DLC Digimon and the Sistermon to look at Ukomon, Whirlpool Spin. Yes, a ton of Ukomon data is in this game. It is factually in the game, more so than any other cut Digimon. We have data, we have stats and attributes for Ukomon in the game files. Of course, as I talked about recently, we had the card that was Ukomon, the Steam achievement that is Ukomon. I absolutely believe Ukomon was going to be included in this game at one point, perhaps when it was more intended to release around Adventure 02 the beginning, maybe another pre-order bonus, but when Habu was transitioned off the game and Hara was brought in, things like Ukomon might have been cut. You have to bear in mind, this is cut data from a game that was in development for between 8 and 5 years, depending on the timeline and whether development restarted. Of course, the X antibodies that I talked about, and then some ones that are gonna be disappointing to people. Ragulmon and Ophanimon Fall Down mode. Ragulmon has no real reason to be here because we don't see anything else from the rest of the Meikumon line. However, Meikumon was in Digimon World Next Order eventually. To me, it feels like, especially with the Ophanimon Fall Down mode, maybe this part of development was going to start focusing in on adding the Meikumon evolution line and branches, and then perhaps even giving us Ordinamon, as we already have a majority of Angelwomon evolutions in the game. Omnimon Merciful mode also made it in, and then we have Algomon Adult and Ultimate. My hypothesis on this is that the Algomon line was going to get added, because let's think about it. Hara has stated that the cutoff point for new Digimon was around 2020. And here were some of the most recent Digimon in the game that even in fact you get as bonuses in certain editions of the game to get early: Agumon Bond of Bravery, Gabumon Bond of Friendship, the Kizuna Megas. What was happening around the same time as Kizuna, just after Kizuna? Digimon Adventure 2020, which brought back Algomon from Digimon Data Squad and Savers and turned it into a more prominent enemy Digimon. My opinion, my hypothesis, my speculation, there is no fact here, are that maybe at some point they were like, oh, maybe we could add the Algamon line, and they didn't get around to it. Mephismon and Golfmon, evil Digimon, we've seen them pop up recently in media. Maybe we just had too many evil Digimon as it was, they just didn't get around to it. And then we have Lylemon and Liamon. This to me is an absolute no-brainer for addition to the game. We have actually a pretty prominent side quest with a Loader Leomon, and of course we have Bancho Leomon in the game. Shame we haven't seen anything that indicates that perhaps Heavy Leomon could have been in this game. But the Loader Leomon quest, if you played it, is very like abridged. It feels like you're supposed to go somewhere and you kind of just don't end up going to a proper location. My opinion was always that that was kind of truncated and made much smaller. In fact, there's probably a lot of quests that were made much smaller, like trying to get the fruit for Venusmon and things like that. So perhaps at one point in the game, Lylemon was going to be an NPC that becomes Liamon and then Loader Leomon. It's possible, right? You can see the connection there to the story now that we've played the game. Then we have Hoodymon. This could be remnant data from Hacker's Memory, absolutely, but I think it's actually more likely that they probably intended to include Hoodymon because we do have a lot of carry through from Cyber Sleuth and Hacker's Memory in this game, but maybe there was some internal debate as to whether they should canonically add it. My stance has always been, if it's a Digimon you're raising, it has nothing to do with the canon of the games. It could have gotten data from a different dimension or something like that, so any Wormmon can become Hoodymon. Even though obviously the name Hoodymon comes from Hoodie in the story of Hacker's Memory, going forward that doesn't have to be the case. That's why Hoodymon can just be on VPETs and stuff. But maybe they had that kind of internal discussion and decided to cut them. Omekamon is also apparently here. Doesn't surprise me. Omekamon has been linked to Omnimon X. I could have seen this in the base game or the DLC. No real huge comment here, just something I'd like to see in the game. I mean, I did kind of joke about them adding even more Omnimon to the game, and Omekamon is an easy addition. Volto Bautamon, Bolt Batmon, whatever you want to call it. We very clearly go back to Digimon Survive. It was also a potential evolution for one of the partner Digimon, Dracmon. I will be very vague on spoilers. To me, it felt very clear with it both being in Survive and World Next Order that it would make it into Time Stranger, perhaps in a prominent role. But maybe instead of Bolt Boutmon, maybe we got like Venomiotismon as a boss. Little things like that, you know? I do think that was intended to be in the game, and then we've got a Suramon, which could have really slotted in anywhere. This is where it gets really interesting to me because we have a list of cut armors, and again, these apparently could be from Eirias, but I just don't see the crossover here where there'd be random Eirias data when so much of this lines up with Time Stranger. We got Sagittariumon, the Hope armor, Bullmon, also a Hope armor, Kotalmon, a Light armor, Lynxmon, a Courage armor, Bitmon, a Friendship armor, Swanmon, an armor of Love, Boarmon, also of Courage, Sheepmon, a Hope armor, and then Prairiemon and Opossumon, both Kindness armor Digivolutions. I heard a rumor that the Digi-Egg of Kindness is in the code of Time Stranger, but I've not seen anything to back that up and can't find it. If that is true, let me know. Either way though, it wouldn't have been a stretch to have added the Digi-Egg of Kindness to the game. We have all the 0-2 partners armor digivolving to their default forms in the game, except for Wormmon and Poochymon. Now, these leaks, these cut content datamines do not have Poochymon, but given that a bunch of the other armors seem to be in here, it's not a stretch to assume that more armor digivolution potential would have been possible. Seeing a more VPET style of evolution where the Digimon can share Digi-Eggs, which would actually make a ton of sense because you have to buy them and you can't use them for a ton. Now, that's also true of the Frontier Spirit, sure, but it would be a really good idea for the DLC if you could use the armor Digi-Eggs for more purposes and maybe add the Digi-Egg of Kindness in the DLC too. Extra things here, we've got Ancient Greymon and Ancient Garurumon. Obviously we have Ancient Wisemon in the game. That's the only Ancient Digimon as far as I'm aware. I can definitely see Ancient Greymon and Ancient Garurumon being used for something like a Shambhala side quest tying into Susanoo-omon, or just maybe being alternate megas instead of Magna Garurumon and Emperor Greymon for the Fire and Light Spirits. Instead we could have got Ancient Greymon and Ancient Garurumon. And that's it as far as this leak goes. Now, we do have one other thing to consider for the DLC, and then maybe I can stop theorizing on the roster for the DLC until we get more information later this year. But we do have the popularity poll that they revealed at Digimon Con for Digimon most likely to be added to Time Stranger. And in fact, Terriermon Assistant has even made a video on this. So of course we had the top 20, 11 through 20 being Elizamon, Commandramon, Blucomon, Vorvomon, Shumon, Chiropmon, Vemon or Bemon, Skull Knightmon, Terromon, and Loemon. Then the top 10. Number 10 we have Gekomon, makes sense, the most recent anime partner. Then Ludamon, which is also in Beat Break right now. Meikumon at number 8, Terriermon Assistant at number 7, Herismon from Eirias at number 6, which is going to be showing up in Digimon Elysian, but maybe we'll see in Time Stranger DLC. Number 5, my boy Pulsemon from the Vital Bracelets. Please, Hara, please. You gave me Hyokomon Online, now give me Pulsemon evolutions. Gumdramon, hugely surprising, love to see that Cross Wars love. Kazemon or Fairymon in at number 3, I think probably the most wanted spirit. I know there's a lot of love for all the spirits, I would love to see them all added. We could at least get a couple more added to Time Stranger, that would be great. Maybe the Kazemon Wind Spirits at least. Number 2, Lugamon, hugely popular Digimon thanks to Digimon Seekers and showed up in Digimon Beat Break. And number 1, Gamamon. So I'm putting in a pretty hardcore lock that we're going to see the Gamamon evolutions in Time Stranger. First of all, it kind of makes sense. Gamamon and its evolutions are all themed around the names of constellations and other celestial bodies, so it being added to Time Stranger, which has like a whole cutscene focused on gods and constellations, works in my opinion. I think Gekomon has a solid chance of making it into the DLC. It's already technically in the game on the free t-shirt update, much like how Terriermon Assistant was an NPC in the game that got converted to a full Digimon. Now sure, Gekomon doesn't have a 3D model or anything like that in the game, but still, it's a connection to the game that would make sense. The others, I really don't know. All we have is hope. However, Mekumon winning the poll and Ragglemon being a move that was cut from the game, as well as Ophanimon fall down mode, plus the fact that it was DLC and World Next Order, really to me could indicate that they would add its full branching evolution line to Time Stranger's DLC. Everything else though is kind of a crapshoot as to whether we could see it in the DLC or not, and in fact there's a lot of Digimon that should have been in the game in my opinion, like Monmon, given that Kotemon and Bearmon are in the base game, that were in the popularity poll but didn't even hit the top 20. I think honestly Monmon should be added and given like Hanemon and stuff. Heck, you could even tie it into more Shambhala Digimon like Seiten Gokumon, but it just hasn't been. Anyway, that's my thoughts on now looking back on that cut list of Digimon from Time Stranger, how many are now in the game and how others might make more sense with the context of the story and Digimon already in the game. Let me know which ones you want to see in the comments down below and which ones from that list and the poll you think are most likely to be added to the game. Thank you once again to this video sponsor 8BitDo. Look out at this ultimate controller too. The Agumon color looks good in my hand. And thank you to my sovereign DDK14 as well as everyone else who supports me over on patreon.com/Karn EX and my YouTube channel members here on YouTube. I appreciate you all so much. I'll see you next time when we go digital. Okay, bye bye.